As the morning light shines outside the Baker's castle, a gruesome scene unfolds. All the Trovan forces have been massacred, their bodies lying scattered across the ground, weapons fallen from their lifeless hands. The faint smell of blood mixes with the cool morning air, a silent reminder of the fierce battle that has just ended. Sibolger screams loudly, his voice echoing through the stone walls, declaring that as Lord Theo commanded, the mission to defend the back territory has been completed. His tone carries a strange mix of pride and sorrow. Amid the exhaustion of the aftermath, Theo stood calmly. He casually told Sybil that there was no need to shout like that. Approaching Sybil, Theo told him that he had done well this time. Unable to contain his emotions, Sybil cried, his shoulders trembling slightly. He believed that Theo had truly acknowledged him this time. It was not just an order followed or a duty fulfilled, it was recognition from the man he respected the most. Navin then stepped forward and told Theo that he hadn't expected. Theo Ragnar, with his usual composed tone, says he dropped by just in case. But seeing it for himself, it seems Navin Bakshu didn't need his help after all. Navin Bakshu smiles faintly and says it's all thanks to those lads. He gestures toward the group of men who stand proudly, their armor still dusted with battle dirt. He asks Theo Ragnar where on earth he found people like them. Theo Ragnar answers simply that they are the ones he trained with back when he was an apprentice inspector. They wanted to serve him, so they joined the Chainlia Palace Guard. Theo Ragnar tells Navin Bakshu that it looks like they have earned his approval. Navin Bakshu nods slowly, admitting honestly that he didn't expect much at first. They were only intermediate inspectors without any remarkable experience after all. But after a few days of operating together, though their skills are still raw, Navin Bakshu realized they are people he can trust. With a satisfying smile, Theo Ragnar says hearing that. See, this was just a stop on the way. He has another purpose. Navin tilts his head and asks, what purpose? With a scheming smile, Theo says, an investigation of the floating archipelago. Navin gets flustered hearing Theo say that. Addressing him as my lord, Navin says one would think he'd be used to it by now, but Theo's boldness still catches him off guard. Navin asks Theo, isn't that the place where they are notoriously hostile to outsiders, where it's hard to even get in? With a small, knowing smile, Theo says, I've got my ways. The scene shifts to the port city of Dian. The sound of seagulls echoes across the harbor, mixed with the creaking of ships, and the chatter of sailors. In a certain bar filled with smoke and noise, Theo enters quietly, blending in with the crowd. While entering, Theo accidentally bumps into someone. The big guy he bumps into glares down at him and calls him, Shorty. See, this was just a stop on the way. He has another purpose. Navin tilted his head and asked, what purpose? With a scheming smile, Theo replied, an investigation of the floating archipelago. Navin became flustered upon hearing this. And addressing him as my lord, Navin said that one would think he'd be used to it by now, but Theo's boldness still caught him off guard. Navin then asked Theo, isn't that the place that is notoriously hostile to outsiders, where it's hard to even get in? With a small, knowing smile, Theo said, I have my ways. The scene shifts to the port city of Dian. The sound of seagulls echoes across the harbor, mixed with the creaking of ships and the chatter of sailors. In a certain bar filled with smoke and noise, Theo entered quietly, blending in with the crowd. While entering, he accidentally bumped into someone. The big guy he bumped into glared down at him and called him, Shorty. But asking if he can't open his damn eyes when he walks. Theo, mocking and calm, says it's his own fault. He guesses he just didn't see him down there. While holding a beer mug, Theo adds that he'll make the big guy lower himself to his level. The big guy grits his teeth in anger, his hand tightening around his drink. The crowd senses the tension rising and, slowly, a bar fight begins. People start cheering them on, some banging their mugs on the tables. Others shout for more drinks, turning the brawl into entertainment. The barmaid runs around frantically, unable to keep up with all the orders. In a quiet room inside the bar, far from the chaos, a character named Oi speaks coldly. Starting from the 15th, the floating archipelago shall regularly offer gunpowder and steel to the Trovan family as tribute. The cost shall be considered the rental fee for the dragon sword. After hearing the report, someone slams his fist on the desk in anger. We are introduced to the Spinola family's next head, Antonio Spinola. His face twists in rage. A request, my ass, he growls. That's a bloody threat. Antonio turns to the girl standing beside him and says, and what? A rental fee. The Trovans steal it, then say they'll lend it back to us for money. What a load of... The girl replies softly, still, we've got no choice, do we? Antonio clenches his jaw. Without the dragon sword, the floating archipelago will sink. He frowns deeply. Damn it. If we hadn't lost the dragon sword, we wouldn't be at Trovin's mercy. His voice lowers, almost breaking. Is there truly no hope left for our archipelago? At that moment, Antonio hears the sounds of fighting from the bar. Sounds came from outside. He gritted his teeth again, frustration rising. Kicking the door open, he shouted, "Bastards, my head's already about to explode. And now this. Why the hell are you kicking off again?" Everyone in the bar froze when they heard his voice. The room went silent. He pointed around, furious. "When did I say you couldn't drink? Just drink quietly, for God's sake." Theo, standing nearby, smiled faintly. So, he finally decided to show himself. The next head of the Ragnar family. Theo entered the room with the man while two guards stood at attention outside the door. The man from the Ragnar clan looked at him suspiciously and said, "So, what you're saying is you want to go to the floating archipelago, and you want me to take you aboard my ship as a combatant?" Theo nodded. "That's right. I heard sea monsters have been appearing more often on that route lately." Theo smirked slightly. "And as for my skill, that little scene back there proved it well enough, didn't it? You're short on manpower anyway. It's a win-win, isn't it?" The man scratched his chin thoughtfully and told Theo, "Well, you're not wrong. We were looking for crew, but you're not getting on my ship." He narrowed his eyes. "For a mercenary looking for work, your gear's too clean. No signs of wear at all. That scuffle you caused, it just happened to be right where I was. And you just conveniently know we've got a ship bound for the archipelago. If you were me, would you let you aboard?" After hearing this, Theo chuckled lightly. "I'd have been disappointed if you hadn't seen through it," he admitted. "Good. Let's get straight to it, then." He placed a badge on the table. At his desk, Theo says, "Antonius Spinola, leader of the Black Skulls, the armed resistance fighting for the liberation of the floating archipelago. How about we make a deal?" Hearing Theo's words, Antonio's eyes widen. He goes stiff, nervous, and shocked. "How do you know that I'm the leader of the Black Skulls?" Theo smiles faintly. "Come now, that's not the important part, is it? It's not about how I know, it's about what I know. For example, that dragon sword you're so desperate for." After Theo says those words, Antonio's eyes widen even more. In anger, he kicks his chair back and yells, "Bastard, so, you're a dog of Troven after all." Theo remains calm. "Calm down. The basis of any deal is composure, isn't it?" Hearing the noise, one of the guards peeks in and asks, "Sir Antonio, is everything all right?" Antonio gestures for the guard to go back. He faces Theo again, thinking calmly to himself, "This is nonsense. If you're not with Troven, there's no reason you'd mention the dragon sword." Theo leans forward slightly. "What if I told you I have the dragon sword?" Antonio scoffs as he slowly picks up his chair. "That's ridiculous. It's a fact that Troven stole it, and now you're claiming you have it." "Absurd." Theo tilts his head. "Why is that absurd? Like you, Troven probably only said they had it, too." Hearing that, Antonio freezes. His mind races. Come to think of it, Troven has never shown the real thing. Could it be possible their judgment has grown so clouded, even with the archipelago's fate at stake? Theo says, "You've got nothing to lose, right? Why not just hear me out?" Antonio exhales slowly. "Fine, I'll hear you out." Theo begins, his tone calm but serious. The legend and mystery of the floating archipelago. It all begins with the tale of the hero Kriemhild. Antonio frowns slightly, flustered. "Looks like you already know the story." Theo nods. Kriemhild drove his sword into the head of the sea dragon that once ravaged the ocean, sealing it beneath the waves. The hero of legend, Kriemhild. That fairy tale, Theo continues, is real. The floating archipelago is said to float above the sea thanks to mysterious currents. But that's not true. The dragon Kriemhild sealed lies deep under the sea, and the immense ma it releases creates an updraft that holds the islands aloft. The dragon sword is the device that maintains that seal, a medium that keeps the mana flow stable. He pauses briefly before continuing. But ever since Troven stole it, the mana currents have grown unstable. If the dragon sword isn't returned soon, the archipelago will sink back into the sea. Antonio leans forward. "You're not joking. The lives of far people are at stake. If you truly have the dragon sword and you return it to us, we'll grant you anything you wish." Theo thinks quietly for a moment. Returning the dragon's sword isn't a real solution. Troven could steal it again at any time. More than that, it would mean giving it up forever. Most importantly, it means I would have to abandon the very thing I've fought for. Antonio looks at him seriously. "Let's continue with the deal. Then what do you want? If it's money, we can pay any amount." Theo shakes his head. "I don't need money. His voice is calm but resolute. I've already prepared a way to keep the dragon sword and save the archipelago. With a faint, scheming smile, Theo tells Antonio, all you have to do is take me to the floating archipelago. Hearing that, Antonio grits his teeth in frustration. But deep down, he knows he doesn't have much choice. The fate of his people might depend on trusting this man who seems to know too much and hides even more behind his calm smile.